to another edition of the Philly Factor. My name is Paul Perrello. It's always great when I catch up with someone that is a LaSalle grad, a LaSalle alum, and that is the case of my next guest. She may have we were students here at LaSalle at the same time. She was an education major. I, at the time, was an English major with concentration in communication studies. But Kathy Wolper joins us. Kathy, it is a pleasure to see you after all these years. And thanks for being with us on the program.
Okay, thanks, Paul. It's great to see you too.
Yeah. In this, I guess I have to ask, in this new world that we're sort of trying to navigate here, how are you making out given the circumstances that we've been thrust into now for more than a year, or close to more than a year?
I'm doing pretty well. I have my own business and I had to pivot, that word that everybody's been using that nobody used except on the show Friends before,
Right.
before the pandemic last year. But I have been able to make the transition and I like where it's going.
That's good. Kathy is the owner of Kitchen Wizards, and we're going to get into her business here in a moment. She's sitting in her kitchen, which, appropriately enough, I was glad that she decided to set herself up in her kitchen because we're going to be talking about her business. But just a little bit of your backstory is that you graduated from LaSalle. Can I say the year? Because I'm dating myself as well. She graduated from LaSalle College at the time in 1978. I also graduated as a member of class of 79 from LaSalle College. And you were an elementary education major. You went into teaching. That was your passion at the time. And then where did life take you after graduation? Where did you start teaching? Then what comes next?
My first 2 years out of college, I taught fourth grade at St. John the Baptist School in Manayunk. Then I went back to my old grade school in Norristown, St. Patrick's School, and I taught third grade in my old third grade classroom, which was it was really fun. And, of course, you know what it's like in your home parish. Everybody knows you. They know your family and everything. So there were kids that I taught whose parents were in my older siblings' classes. So it was a lot of fun to teach there. But I was in my late 20s and still living at home because Catholic school teachers at the time made a pittance. And so I started working in Center City in a private investment bank called Brown Brothers Harriman. And I was the assistant to the investment manager. And after a few years, it was a great job. I made a lot of lifetime friends, but I missed the interaction of teaching. So I got a position as a technical trainer, and for a company where I trained people, end users at their jobs on how to use the proprietary computer systems. And that company filed for bankruptcy. So in 2001, and I worked a short time as an in-house trainer. And then I went and started my own home-based baking business because I always had a passion for cooking and baking. So I had taken classes in how to make different kinds of foods, different cooking classes just for pleasure. And so I started the home-based baking business. And again, that teaching thing just pulls you. If you have it in you, you can't get away from it. So after a few months of selling baked goods at home, I started to offer cooking programs for kids, then for adults. And fast forward to a year ago, I spun off a division called Kitchen Wizards. My baking business was Kathy's Just Desserts, but I stopped selling baked goods, spun off a division called Kitchen Wizards, and then I ended up with about 25 contracted teachers who taught programs down the shore and also in the Philly suburbs for me. And I was also teaching because that's what I really love to do. So then the pandemic hit and everybody went home. So I had to figure out how to make the business continue. I was just talking to someone else this morning and I said, it never crossed my mind to just say, oh, well, it was nice, but after 19 years, I guess I'm out of business. What I thought was, how can I make it work? So, it's really important when you're an entrepreneur to not give up, to really want it with a passion. So this was a passion project for me because I love to teach and I love to cook and bake, and it combined everything. So that's when I learned how to use Zoom, and I started teaching culinary programs via Zoom.
Yeah, we're all learning Zoom these days, aren't we? That's the new way for us to do everything. But your story is inspirational, and when I first found out about it, I'm thinking we initially tried to do a show with Kathy about a year ago when I first reconnected with her and started reading about her. But then, the pandemic sort of fell in our laps, and we had to sort of pivot and figure out things. But it is an inspirational story because, like you just said, Kathy, many people, and I'm certain of this even today as we sit here and we speak, have waved the white flag. They've said, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to turn. There are many people there that are suffering because of the circumstances that we're confronted with. But again, your story is inspirational because your passion for education, your love of teaching, I guess afforded you the opportunity to maybe see that I'm not ready to give up and that I love to be in a classroom environment or connecting with people and share my knowledge. And that's what's so inspirational about your story, is because you could have, like many other people, could have walked away from it all and said, I'm done. There's nothing else for me to do. But Kitchen Wizards is what we're here to talk about, because pardon me, but I can barely boil water without a disaster in the kitchen. You understand? And it's not because I'm a guy, just because we had a gas range and now we have an electric range.
Oh.
And I just, the old saying, I just figured out how to stop the blinking on the VCR. For those people that are even like saying, what's a VCR? Yeah, I know, we're really ourselves. But, okay, around the gas range, it was fine. But now with the electric range, I'm like, no, it's all my wife. I can't, figure it out. So tell us a little bit about Kitchen Wizards and where we can find more information out about you. And we'll talk about some of the classes that you offer.
Okay, sure. So with the virtual programs, I'll focus on that. I actually like how they've turned out better than the in-person programs, especially for children. Because with children's classes, when you have 16 kids in a class for an hour or 2 hours, usually what I would do would be prep a lot of things ahead of time, the doughs and batters and things like that. And then the kids would do the hands-on part. But with the virtual programs, I send the list of ingredients to the families, and then the kids log on and they're learning the proper way to measure, the difference between a liquid measuring cup and a dry measuring cup. They're learning about different subjects. I think I mentioned to you in an email that when the Pope was in town,
Sure.
we did an awful lot of after school programs at Catholic schools because I had the connection from having taught in a Catholic school. Sure. And so we would do Eat Like the Pope. And it was the Pope's favorite recipes, along with some other Italian and Argentinian recipes. And the kids were so stoked about it because they were all talking about the Pope coming to Philly. And so that was really a lot of fun, that they could go home and share that with their parents, that, the Pope has pizza that's the color of the papal flags. And, that's what he likes. And these are the colors of the papal flags. So they were learning about religion, in that case. But I also incorporate, I have programs like Eat Like the Presidents, where it's president's favorite foods. And I talk about trivia about each of the presidents that we focus on. And Cooking Around the Clock, which is foods from each time of the day so that they know how to prepare one meal, a life skill, one meal for each time of day, breakfast, lunch, snacks, and dinner. And our camps are 4 days long. And we do cookies from around the world. So they learn not only about world geography, but about crops that are grown, like cinnamon is grown in Mexico, and the climate in different countries and traditions. A lot of times we'll talk about Christmas traditions as well as, the geography part.
Sure.
We do, so that's world geography. We just do, multitude of different themed classes where, because I have the teaching background, I incorporate what's appropriate for each grade level so that I'm sneaking in that education along with giving them critical thinking skills. Why would a ball of cookie dough this big take less time to cook than a ball this big? So that they understand that concept, and also incorporate things that they're learning in school so that when they're in the classroom, remember, I've been a classroom teacher, when they're in the classroom, they can, kind of perk up when they're talking about the presidents or geography or climate, whatever the subject is, maybe they'll be able to contribute something that even the teacher doesn't know about.
Sure.
A trivial fact about a president. With the home-based, the virtual programs, the kids are preparing from start to finish, except for putting it in the oven, then the parents do it. So that's a kind of good bonding thing for the parents. But it also is great for the kids to exude self-confidence, to feel like they're contributing to the household by cooking dinner or cooking dessert,
And while the children's programs is a major component of Kitchen Wizards, you also offer programs for families, for adults, for senior living residents. So you really have got, I guess, every demographic covered here with Wizards.
If it has to do with teaching, I can craft a program that's appropriate. I've done, my parents were living in a special assisted living facility, and I did a program there, which, they were just beaming with pride because their daughter's teaching this program. But
Sure.
It was great for the people. It's not a large community, so the other residents had seen me visiting my parents. They knew who I was. And we did cupcake decorating, and they got to take the cupcakes home, and they had their little containers, and they were going to go back to their rooms and have their cupcakes that they decorated. But I've done special needs adults in group homes. I've done corporate team building classes, programs for classes. Valentine's weekend, I did one for a 5th grade class. And they were all invited, and the teachers and the principal showed up, and the kids were thrilled to see them. You could tell that they really liked the faculty at their school. But
Sure.
The kids made heart-shaped pizzas, so we made homemade pizza dough and homemade sauce. And do you call it sauce or gravy for pizza? Paul, do you call it?
It's gravy. South Philly. If it's red, it's gravy. If it's red, it's gravy.
Okay. We made pizza gravy.
I'll give you a pass.
Yeah, I'm a Metagon and I'm from the suburbs,
There you go. That's okay. You hung out with the South Philly group, the Guidos from South Philly at the cafeteria. We'll let you slide. Yeah. But so how do people, Kathy, I guess you go to kitchenwizards.info, that's your website, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So go ahead.
There's an events page, so they can go to the events page, and my whole calendar is listed. And it has whether it's for adults or for children and what age children. And then it has who's sponsoring it, and what the price is. And then you can click the hyperlink and register online for it.
Yeah.
And people can also email me for a private class, if they wanted. I had a family from Minnesota that the kids took my camps in the summertime, and every school holiday, the mom gets in touch with me. And between Christmas and New Year's, they asked me to do a program with the cousins from Texas because they weren't going to be able to spend the holidays together.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it was for Thanksgiving. So they made Thanksgiving side dishes the day before Thanksgiving with me virtually. And the kids were from different parts of the country, but they were cousins. And that way, even though they couldn't eat together, they prepared the food together. And when they were eating in their separate homes, they were eating the same food. So that was really awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how you can connect people literally from two different sides of the country, but then again, I guess food is that common denominator. It's the common language. We all like to eat. And so if, whether you're a skilled a cook in the kitchen or you're just beginning, you might want to log on to kitchenwizards.info and find out more information. And it's an easy website to navigate and negotiate. And you can see for yourself right there, Kathy's calendar, and you can sign up and see what's the cost associated with the, I don't want to say it's a workshop, but it's a lesson. It's learning something, but it's fun learning. And your background in education, hearing you sort of describe how you do all this with the computer, and you should have been a communications major, because I think you far exceed some of the communication kids that are coming out of schools today, and they don't know how to plug in a computer or even how to initiate a Zoom call. I guess us old timers have to learn on the fly, if you will.
Right. Well, what I've done with the Zoom classes is I have one camera that's a large view of me. I have a second camera that looks at what we're making, the hands-on part, so that the people that are participating can see what I'm doing and what it's supposed to look like. They also get copies of the recipes that they can go by as well. But if somebody, and this happens more with kids, they either want the spotlight on them or they're having an issue with what they're making. Yesterday, we made soft pretzels. And one of the girls, her pretzel dough was sticking to her hands. So I spotlighted her camera so that I could see her up close. So she took over the whole screen. And the kids love that too, when they get to be in the spotlight. But I did that so that I could guide her and advise her how to make her recipe work. And it was cute because she said, "Is this going to end up being okay that I can get pretzels out of it?" And I said, "Absolutely." So she ended up, she added more flour to her hands. And then when she kneaded it, it didn't stick to her hands. So it was a simple tip, but I think she did something wrong, either not enough flour or too much water, because it shouldn't have been that wet. But it's okay. It turned out fine. So she was happy, so.
There's this tremendous growth on television these days of all these cooking shows and all these baking shows, but they're sort of one-sided. I mean, they show you how to do it, but you can't necessarily interact with the person who's doing the demonstration. What you offer, Kathy, is the ability to interact. I mean, these are live Zoom calls, or if you're doing in-person workshops, they're able to interact with you or some of your other team members. And that is so valuable because, like in the case of the girl you just mentioned from yesterday, if something's not working, you can intervene and sort of help them through that dilemma, be it, big or small.
Right. And the last thing I want to do is tamp down their self-confidence. I want them showing them how that's okay. We'll get around it. Then they don't take it. Some kids are just, as some adults too, are just, so nervous about making a mistake when they're cooking or baking. I have Instant Pot classes, and I have so many for adults, and I have so many adults who take the class and they say, Oh yeah, I got it for Christmas a year ago. Still sitting in the box. I'm afraid of it. So I
Uh,
talk to them about all the features on it, and we make some recipes during the class so that they can see. It takes the fear out of it. Same
sure.
thing with working with yeast. A lot of people are afraid of working with yeast. So showing them, and I've been told, which they mean it as a compliment. I've been told by adults who took my in-person classes that they really like it because they've seen these, super wow factor adult classes that are not for hands-on. They're just for observation. And while it's great, it packs the wow factor. It's entertainment, but they would never
Never do
make
it. Yeah,
that
or
at
they
home.
could never do it.
But with
Yeah.
mine, yeah, I take more of a home cook attitude about my programs. It's not, sophisticated and polished. It's me talking to people, and
Yeah.
and they can relate to it. And if I, put something in the oven and say, "Oh, I forgot to put the basil in. That was in the recipe." People are like, "Okay, we do that." That's real. That's what really happens. So they say that it makes, like, I want to be approachable, and I want them to find cooking and baking approachable and
Yeah.
not something that is scary,
Yeah.
because I enjoy the heck out of it,
Sure.
so
Was there ever a recipe that you came upon, or a meal, or a dinner, or maybe even a dessert that you tried that wasn't necessarily a success the first go around? Where I'm going with this is that, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And so if you're trying something, whether it's on a Zoom call or an in-person demonstration, and things just aren't working out the way they're supposed to, how do you again pivot and salvage the situation?
well, I explain to them I don't try to fake it because they're doing the same thing as me. So I come up with a solution. And after all these years of cooking and baking and teaching programs, I know ways to get around it if I mess up a
Sure.
recipe. But to give you an example of a real mess up from when I was 9 years old, my first from scratch cake, my mom put out all the ingredients and she said, "Okay, do you need help?" No, I want to do it myself. I was baking cupcakes from scratch. So I have four brothers and a sister, and three of my brothers are older. So I baked these cupcakes. They looked beautiful. My dad is a sweetheart. He would never want to hurt anybody's feelings. So my mom made a big fuss. Kathy baked the cupcakes. She put them out. She turned around to pour milk for all the kids. And my brothers started clutching their throats and saying, "Water, water." And she was like, "Stop that. Kathy put a lot of work in." They said, "Oh my gosh, it's too salty." Meanwhile, the other end of the table, my dad is chugging his tea, but he's eating that cupcake. He likes sweets, but still, So she took a taste and she said, "Kathy, what did you put in this?" My first scratch cake at 9 years old. And I tell kids this story because I want them to know you don't have to just throw your hands up. You can still
Right.
be okay with it. But I said, just like the recipe said, a cup of salt and a teaspoon of sugar. And she said, "No, you never put a cup of salt in a recipe." They look the same.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, I learned from that, but that was a real goof up, not in a class. But I do tell kids that, so that they kind of calm down and relax a little bit about it. And they get a kick out of it too,
Yeah.
just, they think it's hilarious to think that their teacher had a mistake like that.
Yeah.
So,
We just have a few minutes left in our program, and we can go on and speak for like another hour here, and not only catching up with the past 40 years or so, but once we're out of this cloud of the pandemic, I mean, where do you see this business going, Kitchen Wizards going for you in the future?
well, I'm trying to decide that at this point. I know that through the summer, I'm doing all virtual because the summer is when I do all my camps. And that's always been a really busy season for me. But with the camps, it's hands-on and kids near food. And I think it's just too soon with, even if people get their vaccines, I don't want to take a chance.
Sure.
And so I'm definitely virtual through the summer. After that, I'm not sure. You know how old I am. And, I'm looking for something I can continue through my retirement. And there's a lot of work involved in pulling together 5 or 6 cooking camps or cooking classes a week and delivering supplies to the teachers and, all that good stuff. So if I could do it just in my kitchen, my cleanup is just like cleaning up after a meal, doing the dishes,
Sure.
There's not
Yeah.
a lot of extra expense, so I can offer something that's more affordable because people are buying their own ingredients. But face it, the ingredients are food, food supplies that they would be buying anyway. If you're going to make a chicken dinner, then you would have to buy chicken for it anyway,
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of sophisticated, weird ingredients that people might not have on their regular grocery list. So at this point, I would really love to stay virtual after the pandemic is in the rearview mirror, but I don't know if I'll have enough interest once people are allowed to be in person again.
Well, I hope as a result of this show that we can drum up more business for you. And I'm thinking that the virtual world that we're living in right now is going to be around for quite some time. I can't thank you enough for your time. It was great catching up with you. You can find out more about Kathy and Kitchen Wizards at kitchenwizards.info. And hey, let's not make it another 10, 15, 20 years before we reconnect. I hope to see you again real soon. Kathy, thanks for being with us.
Good. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks. Until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us here on The Philly Factor.